Imagine what your fantasy team could look like today if you had stashed high upside names like Woody Marks and Quentin Johnston before they broke out. Well, that's the whole goal of today's video, to beat the waiver wire. For example, 2 weeks ago on this very video, we told you, please stash Woody Marks. There is so much behind the scenes to tell us he's a great stash. Then again, 1 week ago on this very video series, our #1 pickup, we were begging y'all to pick up Woody Marks. Unfortunately, too many of you did not see the vision. Even more names before they were waiver wire hot pickups. We talked about L.A.K.O. Manor, Bashul Tootin, Jawan Johnson. So let's do it again. Let's beat the waiver wire before week number 5. I'm going to go position by position so you can actually check out the time codes if you want to go and look at a specific stash for a specific position. We'll also have week 6 defensive stashes. I know that was widely requested. All right, these are names that should already be rostered. We're not going to waste too much time on them, but if you're out there in an 8 or a 10 team league, you should prioritize these names. I want to quickly talk about Rachaad White. If Rachaad White is out there, he should be rostered. Right now, at the time of recording this, we don't exactly know what Bucky Irving's status is for week number 5. He had an MRI on his foot/ankle, and right now they're not sure exactly the severity of the injury. They're getting a second opinion. But if Bucky Irving were to miss time, Rachaad White would be a must start each and every week. So definitely he should be rostered in your lineups. Okay, let's go to the running back position. Last week, my #1 pickup, Woody Marks. We smashed on that. Let's do it again. #1 pickup this week is Kendre Miller. Now, this pains me as an Alvin Kamara owner in the Flock League, but Kendre Miller should be rostered, guys. I mean, he was a great prospect out of TCU, dealt with a ton of injuries, is still only 23 years old. He's younger than Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. By the way, last week, top 3 running backs in yards after contact per attempt, Amarion Hampton, Ashton Genty, Kendre Miller. Shout out to Ian Hartitz over on Twitter. He put up a graph that shows yards after contact and missed tackles forced per carry. Guess who's at the top right? Basically, the most elite at that of those two numbers this week. That was Kendre Miller. Shout out to Jacob Gibbs, who notes that Kendre Miller had a snap rate increase every game so far this year. You can actually see that here on Sleeper, 15, 15, 27, and 31. The snaps have gone up each and every week. The involvement has gone up each and every week. And here in week number 4, he was on the field for 5 of 7 red zone plays and scored the touchdown. Obviously, anybody out there who owns Alvin Kamara like me, we don't want to hear that, but he played well. He played amazing, and they gave him plenty of opportunities. Now, I will say, watching that game, he ripped up a really good run, and they let him score the touchdown. So I don't think this is like a indication to tell us that Kamara is not going to be involved in the red zone. That would be the wrong indication. However, here's what's so intriguing about picking up Kendre Miller, even if you own Alvin Kamara. Because if this team continues to lose games, they have not won a game this year. If they go 0-5, what is the reason for both Alvin Kamara and the New Orleans Saints to continue this relationship? There's no reason, right? Why would they not look for a trade suitor? I know Alvin Kamara has a no trade clause. He can waive that, and I'm sure he would be happy to if there's a contending team out there that wants to take him on. So if you roster both Kamara and Kendre, or just pick up Kendre, there's a chance Kendre is a starting running back for a team here at some point. That's well worth rostering. Okay, my second stash for the running back position is Brashard Smith. A recent report came out after week 4 that Matt Nagy wants to see increased usage each week for Brashard Smith. And it makes a ton of sense in my mind. You can see here in week number 4, he actually had his high in usage, 26% of the snaps. We can see that here on PFF as well. 19 of 73 snaps, 8 total opportunities. Not that far off from like Isaiah Pacheco's total opportunities. Brashard had, 8? Pacheco had 11. So he's getting closer and closer every single week. And all it takes is just your eyeballs. All right. All you got to do is watch the Chiefs game, watch Kareem Hunt play, watch Isaiah Pacheco play, and then see the type of juice that Brashard Smith has. It makes sense why they want to get this guy more and more involved each and every week. You can see his snap count on offense went up from 8 to 5 to 8 to 19 last week. This is the Jet McKinnon replacement. At some point, they have got to utilize Brashard Smith. He has the most juice, the most explosiveness out of the backfield. Brashard Smith is a converted wide receiver. He transferred from Miami to SMU for his final collegiate season, dominated as a running back for SMU, helped him get to the college football playoffs, and was used in the air a lot. So I think this is in PPR formats, a really smart stash. Okay, let's talk about Blake Corum next, who is getting more and more opportunities each and every week. I mean, just this recent week, you can see the Rams split the opportunities almost down the middle. Now, obviously, Kyren Williams still was dominant from a snap perspective, only 51 to 22 snaps in favor of Kyren. But when you look at the total touches, we have 13 total touches for Blake Corum and 16 total touches for Kyren Williams. And it's not like the Colts and the Rams was out of hand and it was a blowout. No, that was within the scheme, within the game plan for the Rams here on Sunday to get Blake Corum more and more involved. And it makes sense because in week 2, he had 8.8 yards per carry and a touchdown. In week 3 versus the Philadelphia defense, which is really tough, 6.6 yards per carry. Now, he wasn't great versus Indianapolis, but Blake Corum is well worth rostering. You might be watching this after Thursday Night Football. We'll see what his role was on Thursday Night Football, but regardless, he is worth the pickup. He is worth the stash because if they keep giving him more and more opportunities, I mean, it's worthwhile. And also, obviously, we have to talk about his handcuff upside. If anything were to happen to Kyren Williams, God forbid, then Blake Corum could be a potential league winner for the rest of the season. All right, let's talk about Ollie Gordon. This is just a simple handcuff, right? At this point, if Devon Achane goes down, Ollie Gordon should step into plenty of opportunities. It's not like he's performing all that well, 1.6 yards per carry versus the Jets in week number 4, but he's had plenty of opportunities in the past, and he's shown to be a competent running back. A young rookie. Rookies typically increase their role over the course of the year, so he's worth stashing. One of the best handcuffs in fantasy football is Tyler Algier, and he is still available in the vast majority of ESPN, Yahoo leagues. He's only 40% rostered even on Sleeper, which is typically pretty sharp. Go pick up Tyler Algier. Even if you're in a desperate situation, the reality is this is a team that likes to run the ball a lot. We've already seen 2 games where Tyler Algier scored over 11 points. That is a player that is well worth rostering in my mind. And again, handcuff status. We're seeing a ridiculous amount of season-ending injuries this year. You got to be rostering your handcuffs, guys. Okay, let's talk about Tyjae Spears next. Tyjae, he is not guaranteed to play in week number 5. However, he has been designated to return from IR. That gives him a 21-day practice window to return. Now, he did suffer a high ankle sprain during the preseason action, but the reality is Tony Pollard has been fine. He's been good, but this is more of a split backfield in Tennessee if they had things the way that they want it to be. And Tyjae has a ton of juice out of the backfield. Okay, let's talk about Sean Tucker next. Now, Sean Tucker has not done anything this year. He has been completely uninvolved. He's been strictly a special teams name. However, if anybody remembers the 2024 season, you guys remember week 6 versus New Orleans when he finally got some opportunities. Career high in touches. He had 17 touches. He ran for 136 yards, 9.7 yards per carry, had 2 touchdowns, 34 fantasy points. So again, if Bucky Irving misses time, if it becomes a very serious injury, then he is worth rostering because he's one of these names where we all know how talented he is. He's just never gotten his true fair shake at the opportunity. So definitely a name worth rostering. Okay, let's talk about Kyle Monangai. I really think Kyle Monangai should be rostered for you guys. I mean, the reality is, how long can DeAndre Swift play mediocrely? And is that even a word, mediocrely? Well, how long can he play mediocre and Ben Johnson be okay with it? 2.7 yards per carry versus the Raiders. Versus the Raiders. Come on. 2.5 yards per carry versus the Cowboys. The Cowboys, guys, these are great matchups. He has not been efficient. He's been fine as a receiving weapon through the air. But how long will Ben Johnson let mediocrity, that's the word we're looking for, lead the way with his backfield? Kyle Monangai has been relatively efficient with his limited opportunities. We're seeing his snap shares, kind of fluctuate 13, 41, 29, 28% of the snaps. But here's what's so enticing about a Kyle Monangai. They have their bye week this week. So even if you don't pick him up now, definitely pick him up next week when no one's thinking about it. Because what we typically see with rookies is if there is going to be a change in the backfield for a rookie running back, it typically happens after the bye week. Because the staff has a chance to really assess where the team is. After the bye week, we always see changes for rookies and their roles grow. So he is a priority stash, in my opinion, because he has a chance at one point. I know it sounds crazy. He has a chance at some point to maybe take over that job. Okay, Chris Rodriguez is worth a stash. He keeps being the starter for the Commanders, even though I don't like it as a JCM owner in the Flock League. He's playing well. The reality is there's probably no value, but we're diving deep into our bag with these stashes. You're trying to find the needle in the haystack. There's probably no value in the Commanders' backfield, and it's more likely than not that Bill Krosky will get more opportunities as the season goes rather than Chris Rodriguez. But Chris is playing well, and if at some point they eliminate Jeremy McNichols, then Chris could have a good role in his own right. Xavier Scott, really interesting name here, right? Because he's a former wide receiver. He's 26 years old, but they gave him 8 targets out of the backfield versus Pittsburgh in Dublin. So anytime a player gets 8 targets, these are deep, deep, deep pulls now. He is worth a look in deeper formats. News is constantly changing in the NFL, guys. I mean, the Jaylen Warren owners would know that best from last week. If you want my latest up-to-date rankings, as soon as I hit submit, then get the 2025 season pass with my promo code LAND. It's a $34 one-time purchase. You get some vouchers to ask me questions on the live stream. You get unlimited access to the Flock site. Check that out in the description if you want to support the show and get the season pass for your season. Okay, let's move on to the wide receiver position, starting off with Malik Washington. Malik has got to be rostered. In fact, Kendre Miller, my number 1 pickup probably. My second pickup, probably Malik Washington. You have got to stash Malik Washington. I'm not going to show a photo of the Tyreek injury, but it was very clear as soon as he went down with that injury that he was not going to play again this year. Multiple ligaments in his knee are torn. The ACL is a problem. The ankle is a problem. The kneecap is a problem. He's out for the entire year. Malik Washington is a young, really talented player that this team has been talking about a lot that they want to feature. I know he only had 3 targets last week, but I promise you his involvement is going to continue to skyrocket in this offense. Malik Washington is a young name that we should all be having on our radar. Please go out there and roster him because, man, he is so exciting to watch. Set records with Virginia for ACC single season receptions, set all the records for receivers with the University of Virginia as well. All right, let's talk about Isaiah Bond. This is a name that you cannot look at and scoff, okay? You need to take Isaiah Bond seriously. At one point, which Nick from BDGE here notes, at one point, he was looking like a day 2 pick. People were talking about him in the first round, the second round, the third round of NFL draft. Then, of course, some off-the-field issues happened for him. Now, here's the great news. Dillon Gabriel is going to be playing. He's going to be starting for the Browns, so it's a change at quarterback. Change can only be good at this point for the Browns. Here's the other good news. Well, for Isaiah Bond, not for Cedric Tillman. Cedric Tillman has a hamstring injury. He's going to miss multiple weeks. He's not going to be available. And Isaiah Bond's routes by week have gone up even without Cedric Tillman missing time, right? So in week 1, 23%, then 39, 58, and 71%. You're seeing his usage go up each and every single week. He had 6 targets last week, which was a career high, 3 receptions, which was a career high, and 58 receiving yards, all career highs across the board. You can see Dave Klug actually, noticing that growth from a young rookie. This guy was super talented, such a great route runner. He is worth stashing. He could become a flex at some point if Dillon Gabriel is good. All right, let's talk about Jaden Higgins. You're probably annoyed how much I talk about Jaden Higgins on this channel. I just feel like at some point they've got to make a change in Houston. Last week, we saw a touchdown for Jaden Higgins. He had 1 target, 1 catch, 24 yards, and a touchdown. And guess what? He played 44% of the snaps. It's been 43, 43, 44, 44. I mean, can we please just give this guy 85 to 90% of the snaps and see what happens? Clearly, he's the second best receiver on the team. Now, here's what we're going to look at, okay? Because there are encouraging signs across the board. Guess who leads the league in separation percentage through 4 weeks? Jaden Higgins, number 1 in separation percentage. By the way, separation percentage is defined as how often a receiver beats the coverage to get open rather than benefiting from a defense more focused on limiting yards after the catch or stopping them short of the first down. So it's a great number to actually define who is getting open in the NFL. At some point, they have got to get their young rookie top 35 pick more and more involved. I'm hoping that's happening soon. Okay, let's talk about Luther Burden. Now, his snap percentages are not going up. His usage is not going up. But again, same thing with Kyle Monangai. If you don't stash him this week, make sure you do it next week because there is always, again, if there is a change in the game plan and how they deploy these names, that always happens after the bye week. So I want to be in on a young, super talented player like Luther Burden after the bye week, even just to see if his involvement does change. If we can just get rid of Olamide Zaccheaus' role, if we can just give all of that work to Luther Burden, then we're cooking. Again, Luther Burden keeps getting held back by Olamide Zaccheaus, who had 41 snaps last week compared to 19 for Luther Burden. We all know Burden's a better player. It just takes time for this offense to really develop and, for Ben Johnson to say, okay, Zaccheaus, we appreciate you, but let's see what Burden has. Okay, let's talk about Darius Slayton next. Obviously, with Malik Neighbors going down with that injury out for the year, Darius Slayton is the most obvious name to step in and get opportunities. He's been playing a high percentage of the snaps already, 97, 99, 76, and 87% of the snaps in the last 4 weeks. Now they get the Saints, which is a great matchup. So if he is going to do anything, it probably happens this week. Jalen Coker. I really want to stash Jalen Coker. He is on the IR, but eligible to come back here pretty soon. He could be a really good player out of the slot for this team. This team had big plans for him. I would love to see what he can do out of the slot. We'll talk about Brandon Ayuk really quickly. There is no setback, but the reports were that that Ayuk is not close to returning. So here's what you do with Ayuk and Jalen Coker. You put them on your team. If you have a free IR spot, you stash them here on the IR spot, and then you go to the waiver wire and pick up another name. We all know how talented Ayuk is. This team is constantly dealing with injuries. If Ayuk can come back, he can be an important part of the offense from day one. Let's talk about Torrey Horton real fast. He had back-to-back weeks with a touchdown in weeks 2 and 3, and then it kind of fell off Thursday Night Football versus the Cardinals. I do think at some point he can overtake Cooper Kupp, and then he could have serious value. Let's talk about Luke McCaffrey real fast. Completely uninvolved when Jaden Daniels is the quarterback, but with Marcus Mariota, he had touchdowns in back-to-back weeks. Is that more of a game plan thing where they want to get him more involved? Or is it more he has chemistry with the backup? That's the question we don't know the answer to. Demarcus Robinson. Now, you might be seeing this after Thursday Night Football. Maybe he did nothing. Maybe he popped off and had a touchdown. I think he's worth rostering simply because there are so many injuries to this team. They trust Demarcus Robinson. He looked good in the preseason action. That's why I want to roster him. Okay, let's move on to the tight end position. Mason Taylor, one of our favorite stashes before the year began, but it just was tough to keep him on your roster, right? Because he was playing such a high percentage of the snaps each and every week. We love to see that, but there was no targets to rely on. And in such a low passing volume offense, it was hard to get really excited about him. However, in week number 4, Monday Night Football versus the Miami Dolphins, he had 7 targets, caught 5 of them for 65 yards. And that's great because Aaron Glenn mentioned that they got to get Mason Taylor the ball more. He said, Mason Taylor's a playmaker. We've got to get the ball in his hands. And he's been saying that. Then finally on Monday Night Football, we actually saw a visible change. You see Mason Taylor here, 7 targets, second on the team, only behind Garrett Wilson. So that is definitely encouraging moving forward. A young rookie whose role could grow. If you're tight and needy, you should stash this guy. Okay, quickly. Brenton Strange is a streamable name each and every week. Elijah Arroyo, his snap rate each and every week is going up from 32, 39, 50 to 55%. Last week, he was really involved last week. You saw the upside, the talent of an Elijah Arroyo almost got into the end zone as well. Darren Waller played 28% of the snaps, 2 touchdowns. That is worth looking at, especially with the injury to Tyreek Hill. Quickly on Gadsden, this is a deeper league stash. He played 48% of the snaps here in week number 4 versus the Giants, 3 targets. A little bit discouraging considering the fact that, they were down this entire game. He only got 3 targets, but super talented guy. Theo Johnson, another name we should look at. When Malik Neighbors went down with an injury, he tied Wan'Dale Robinson for first on the team in target share at 30.8%. He ended the day with 5 targets, 17 yards and a touchdown. Worth monitoring, especially if he has inbuilt chemistry with Jackson Dart. Isaiah Likely didn't do anything in his return. Maybe they were slow rolling him, but he's worth looking at. Okay, let's move on to the quarterback spot. Daniel Jones, if you haven't rostered him, I know he didn't have a great fantasy day last week, but that's because Adonai Mitchell's incompetence. He should have had a big touchdown. He's worth playing this week. He's a great streamer. Also, Jackson Dart is a streamer this week versus the New Orleans Saints. One of the better matchups for your quarterbacks. Now, he's not throwing the ball at a high rate. However, he's getting a ton of work on the ground through the RPO. He had 50 rushing yards in his first ever game. That's exciting for me. Also, Dylan Gabriel and Cooper Rush in Superflex leagues are worth rostering if you need a quarterback. We're probably going to see Dylan Gabriel start this week. And then same with Cooper Rush. Okay, if you want to beat the waiver wire for defenses next week, these are matchups in week 6, then look at the Steelers versus the Browns. Browns give up the most points to defenses. Packers versus the Bengals. Raiders versus the Titans. Eagles at Giants. And Broncos versus Jets. All of those teams have top 8 matchups versus defenses in week number 6. Just before we get into some deep league stashes, here is my DFS lineup for week number 5. I've got 6 players I got 100% confidence in. Jahmyr Gibbs at the Bengals. He's getting 2 time points in my roster. Nico Collins at the Ravens with no Marlon Humphreys. I'm excited about that. We're rocking with Woody Marks against the best matchup for your running backs in Baltimore. Cam Scatterbo should drown in touches versus the Saints. I love this lineup. You can create your own on FastDraft's Quick 6 Super Slam contest. All you got to do is choose 6 non-quarterbacks. If you've never played before, download the FastDraft app, use my promo code LAND, and I will match your deposit up to $50 and then give you my week 5 rankings completely free. And here are some deep league stashes on your screen. If you're out there in a 16, 18, 20 team league, these are names that should be considered. Just quickly with Justice Hill, he's worth rostering simply because if the Ravens are down in games, he's going to get plenty of work. I want to shout out to Emmanuel Wilson and Marshawn Lloyd. If Josh Jacobs, if his knee injury is serious, they're worth looking at. But outside of that, guys, I appreciate you watching the video. Do me a favor, hit that like button to show some love. Subscribe if you like the content, and I will see you guys in the next video. Nothing but love. Draft with me every night this week on the FastDraft app, where there are thousands of dollars to be won weekly. Getting started is easy. Download the FastDraft app, use the promo code LAND at signup to get your deposit match up to $50. That's up to 10 free entries on us. And when you finish your first DFS contest, I'll send you my weekly rankings completely free. Check out the link in the pinned comment to start drafting today.